It's very, very dangerous.
Get these spidey sense, I was like, oh, something's off.
I'm just like, man, I'm waiting to hear something,
Get that crowd warmed up. Is Mr. Eufaula Tiger.
What's going on, guys, and welcome to another edition, not subtraction, edition, ADD, no, edition of the War Cry Podcast. I am your host, Eufaula Tiger. This is episode 70. We have been at this 70 episodes, not including live stream, which we're more close to like 85, I think, which is, to me, kind of crazy, because we are now, after this episode drops, which will be dropping Thursday, June 27th, which is today, if you're hearing this on June 27th. And if you're a crazy person listening to it at midnight, respect. But we're 30 episodes away from 100. Now, I've been kicking this around for, I got to episode 50, and I was like, it'd be kind of cool to have someone, I'm going to reach out to somebody. Maybe I can have somebody big on for the 100th episode. Or maybe I might have a few people on. I don't know what I'm going to do, but, we're fast approaching 100 episodes. Hopefully by that point, my goal, this is kind of a weird goal, but to have the 100th episode in the 2-year anniversary of the podcast in the same episode or back-to-back episodes. So that's the plan. Now, will it happen? I don't know. We'll see. But, we always, and this is another thing too. Is it just me? I want you to reach out to me. You can do it in, so if you're on Spotify, you just scroll down and hit, what do I think of the episode? And let me know. Or you just message me, Eufaula Tiger, on Facebook or TikTok, War Cry Pod. There's no more Instagram. Man, I was barely posting to Instagram, so I'm done with it. I've never been really an Instagram guy. So there's no more Instagram, but just War Cry Pod on TikTok. And then Twitter, I believe it's One Man Band 918. Just type in War Cry Podcast, and I'm sure it'll pop up. Or War Cry Pod. Anyways, what was I saying? Oh, one thing that I'm seeing a lot of comments about from people that are not from Oklahoma or not from, I guess, maybe southern states, I guess you could say. I guess Oklahoma's kind of mid-south, I would say. But I don't catch myself saying this all the time, and which is kind of crazy. But does the word or does the phrase does that bother y'all? Does it bother y'all? Because I've seen some comments just, here and there. If you're going to have a podcast. No, it's not on my podcast. I've just seen this with other southern type, podcasts that do cryptid stuff. And they're like, I just cannot listen to the podcast because is said a million times. And I don't know. Sometimes And if you know. But one thing that's crazy about, I think it's southern slang. And I always call it Oklahoma Indian slang too. That's another thing that I think Oklahoma, us natives in Oklahoma have a slang to us that, sounds kind of southern, but it's also kind of like, it sounds like you're from like Wild West. I don't know. But what's crazy is that I have just never caught myself saying, and which is a wild thing. But I've seen some comments. I think I had one person on the YouTube like say, why do you say so much? And I think that's just like the word like for some people. Because I remember, in college, they would always say, you can't use the word like. So people would start a sentence in the middle of their, whatever, I guess, speech. And they would say, like, I cannot, or like that's kind of crazy. And I know a lot, it's like a habit, I guess. But let me know if I do that a lot. Because I don't catch myself doing it until it's too late. And maybe sometimes I'll say, dang, I kind of said, 5 times in the span of like 2 minutes. And it is what it is. But you guys are probably dying to hear some of these places that I've got to talk about today. On this episode, I love to kick it back. I'm from Oklahoma. I don't want to live nowhere else. Colorado seems enticing. Arkansas, eastern Arkansas seems enticing. I mean, they got the hills have eyes over there. I don't know about all that. Missouri, nah, because of Missouri University and their fans are booty cheeks. I'm all right. Kansas, I've seen too many people go missing there that are native, and I don't know about all that. So Oklahoma is where I'm going to be probably for the rest of my life, unless I get a movie deal talking about the life and times. No, I'm just kidding. That's not my game. But anyways, creepy Oklahoma, guys. This is part 2. I did, and there may be a little bit of confusion on this one because I'm labeling this as a part 2, and I've done some editing to the first episode. It used to be Oklahoma Myths and Legends, and that I don't know. I think it was a lot more fact in that than myth and legends. Legends. So I've changed that episode. I've reposted it. It's out now. If you want to listen to that before you get into this part 2, you can do that. Pause it here, and then go listen back. Yeah, I just reposted it on Spotify and Apple, and then YouTube is just I haven't changed it yet. I may end up, but Oklahoma Myth and Legends is the first part of this series. Excuse me. So on this episode, there are a few places that I have heard in my travels in my time that have really. I haven't really been here this long, 30 years. I'm just now dipping my toes in the water, I guess. But I had something brought up to my attention. I'd say probably a couple weeks ago. Somebody had sent me. Actually, I think it was my dad sent me this. But then I saw it on Facebook, and there's a picture floating around of this woman. She was taking pictures of her family out at Eufaula Lake in Eufaula, Oklahoma. She's having a good day, and I'm a weirdo. People you will usually tell the story in the comments. They'll usually just say, "Hey, what did I see?" and then post the pictures. And then in the comments, they'll tell the story. Well, what I've gathered from the comments of that post that the original person took, she was out having, a lake day with her family. And, she's just snapping pictures here and there. And when she, got home and she started looking through the pictures, and she noticed that there was something in the background of those pictures. And if you're listening to this still on YouTube, I'm going to try to clip those 4 pictures. I think there's 3 or 4 pictures. I'll do that on YouTube if you want to see them. They're on YouTube. Like, subscribe, and share. Thank you. Anyways, but I'll post it on there. And as you see the close-ups, y'all remember the show or the movie The Ring with what's her name? I can't. Naomi Watts. Is it The Ring or is it? Yeah, it might be The Ring. Where that girl comes out from the well. That's what that thing kind of looked like to me. It was just like about nostril deep, and you could just see its eyes and its head over the water, and it looked like a human face. And Eufaula has a lot of weird kind of water cryptids, I'd say, or water beings or water things. And they have those tie snakes out there, and they got I've heard people talk kind of label them as eels too, like kind of eel like serpent like that. I've heard the red octopuses out there. And you know what? It's kind of crazy that this came up at the time it came up, because about a month ago, I was talking to somebody, and I was asking them, "Hey, y'all heard any? You're from Eufaula area. Have you heard anything about tie snakes? You got a tie snake story?" I was just curious, and this woman's like, "Man, I've heard of snakes, but I don't really know. My grandma used to talk about mermaids in Eufaula Lake," and I'm like, "Dang, when was she telling you this?" She's like, "Yeah, back probably 80s, but she was a little girl when her mother seen one, and she said it looked like a human, and it was kind of slapping." If y'all hear my cat in the background, I'm probably ruining this, but his name is Oscar. Anyways, but there I did it again. But I asked her, I said, "Have you heard any tie snake stories?" She's like, "No, but I heard my grandmother talk about mermaids when she was a little girl. She saw, or her mother told her she saw a mermaid, and it's like when it went under, its like tail slapped." Now I can't remember if she said her mother saw or her grandmother saw, her grandmother's mother or her grandmother saw it. But she said that basically that what it does is it'll like swim like a human on the water, but when it goes under deep, it makes this slapping sound. And she said her grandmother said that that's what she told her, that there are those beings out there. And I asked her, I said, what do you think that is? You think that's medicine? You think that that's the old maybe ghost or or some type of, because we always talk about, I've said this in previous episodes, that Eufaula Lake is essentially like over the top of graves and ceremonial grounds. And she's like, "I don't know," but that's what she said. She said she never heard anything about snakes or anything like that, but she said her grandmother used to talk about mermaids in Eufaula Lake. But I'd go check that out. And like I said, if you're listening to the audio, like I said, I'll have it on YouTube with the actual pictures. Man, it's really crazy. Really crazy. I was like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, man, that looks like, or like, what is it? The Monster of the Blue Lagoon or whatever that movie was. I ain't old enough to know it, but that's what kind of looked like. It's pretty interesting. Next, kind of creepy Oklahoma thing. And I'm going to talk about a few highway ghosts on this part. I had told a story about seeing the ghost car coming back from Blake Shelton one night, coming through from from Wagner to OK, Oklahoma. And when we got to the cemetery, the road, it's like the lights just turned off at the corner, on the left-hand side of the corner. And I was telling scary stories, and I was getting everybody all spooked out. But all of a sudden we looked back, and that car was on our butt like crazy. Like you couldn't even see the headlights. It was so close. And my friend's freaking out. She's driving. She's getting all nervous and scared. And, we get to the turn next to the cemetery. We're turning the corner, by the cemetery on the left. And all of a sudden she's like, what? It's gone. And it wasn't there. There was no lights. You couldn't see, no one turned off or any of that. And, that story I always think about, different kind of creepy highway things that go on. And some of you guys may know these highways. And if you know another highway, I know with Spirit Talkers episode I was on, we talked about the Pawnee Highway or Pawnee Road over there. They always say that there's something going on over there. So if you have a haunted highway or a ghost story, send it to me. Oh, one thing too, this is creepy. The next edition of that is coming out the week after 4th of July. So that next following week, 4th of July is next week, and then it'll be out the next week. So there'll be no episode next week because of the holiday, and then we'll have that. But the first highway that I want to talk about. So as you head towards Oaks on Highway 10, if you look in the rearview mirror at night, you will see someone, in the back of your car, in the back seat of your car. And that's I've heard that for a while, like you're headed to Oaks, out on Highway 10. It's nothing out there. I mean, there's stuff out there, but it's just so dark out there, at night. And if you have a story about Highway 10, like you're headed to Oaks or you're headed near Oaks, let me know. Next highway that is, got some things going on is on Highway 51, like you're near Taylor's Ferry, and you're headed kind of over there by Taylor's Ferry, but really over there from Wagner to Tahlequah, like you're headed through Holbert. It always been said that there is a light that will show itself, and it's almost like it's dancing in the field. Now, I believe my dad saw that similar light. It's like some people say it's a flame, some people say it's a ball, but it's out there like you're headed to Holbert, like you're going to Tahlequah from Wagner. Next kind of creepy highway thing is Highway 20. And now this is kind of an interesting story because there's been multiple, people talk about this, but how the general story goes is that people have seen what looks to be a child on the side of the road. And this is back in the old days. This is probably back in the 30s or 40s. And then they've seen it here in the last probably 20 years. But the story goes is that they pick up people have reported picking up this child, and this child was talking about his going to his basketball game and playing basketball. And then when they get headed to, like they're headed to Pryor, the boy they go to drop him off, and he's gone, nowhere to be found. And I think the Claremore Progress did a story on this some time ago. Now there's multiple stories that have said that they've seen this little boy, and there's also some people that said they've seen a woman too on that highway. And that's one thing that's kind of crazy about Highway 20 is there's always I'm doing it again. I think that's when I'm unsure how I'm going to say something. But they see that they've seen a woman and they've seen this little boy, and the Claremore Progress came out and said, no, that's just something made up. Even highway patrolmen have stopped people, when they were getting a ticket or whatever for erratic driving. And they pulled people over, and people said, did you not see that little boy in the road? And the officer's like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. So those reports have been made to the highway patrolman, Oklahoma Highway Patrol. And for a lot of years now, but I believe the story originated back back in the early 1900s, kind of, early part. But, people asked to describe this boy, and they say it's about an average looking boy, could pass for modern day, just simple clothes. And some people say he has belongings. Some people say he doesn't. So it's very interesting. I don't know. This is one thing about ghosts that one of these days I'll have a in-depth, thought on what I think ghosts are. But I'm also wondering if like some of these spirits or some of these energies that are stuck in these spots in certain time are relegated to certain aspects of that person's life. So if that person was passed away on the side of the road, they're almost living in a loop, I guess you could say. the energy, the spirit. And that's what I'm wondering what's happening with this little boy. The next highway that we're going to be talking about is the old Route 66 from El Reno to Weatherford. Now, this one's pretty short, but people have reported picking up an elderly man in 50s dress, giving him a ride, and then he just disappears right after. Now, there was a story back, like I said, back years ago, that there was an elderly man who had been struck by a vehicle as he was trying to retrieve something from the road, but he was out of his car and he had been hit, and people have reported seeing him, and that's been going on for years now. But those are some kind of creepy highway ghosts slash spook lights that are all over the place. And I try to find different stories from different parts of Oklahoma. I'll tell you what, it's pretty few and far between headed out to the Panhandle. I've tried to find things out there. So if you're from the Panhandle and some creepy stuff going on, let me know. I'd love to share it, and I'd love to talk about it. And so that's kind of wrapping up highways. The next kind of creepy thing we're going to talk about, and there's, like I said, there's only 4 topics for this time being for this episode. But the next one we're going to be talking about is Tucker Cemetery in Comanche / Duncan. And to give some background on this cemetery, Tucker Cemetery is abandoned, but it features both marked and unmarked graves. Over the years there have been stories of murder, suicide, just different misdeeds, evil misdeeds, kind of not good stuff going on that have taken place there throughout the years. But several people have ventured into the cemetery and have documented their experiences, and they're in different places. I've saw a forum where people were sharing things from the cemetery. People see anywhere from seeing apparitions, light orbs, shadow figures, hearing voices, along with strange noises and other unusual type sound. I've even saw one that they heard a metallic sound, which is kind of interesting. But there are different stories of people seeing grave markers being flipped and tombstones falling over, as they're walking by. There was a story I read that one person was walking by the one of the great headstones, and they saw it. And, oh, okay, and then they looked back, and the headstone was turned the opposite direction. So it was reading as they were walking, but then it was not. It was reading the other way. So if they turned back, they could read the tombstone. So the tombstone had flipped. There's also been some where they've fallen over, as they walked by, they fell over, and they were like, "What?" Some people will say, "Oh, well, it's just the weight, your weight going by." Dang, that must be a 700-pound person just be walking by and just rattling headstones to the ground. Yeah. But some of the other kind of scarier things that went on is there was a man by the name of Tucker. And he has been seen walking the grounds, and other people have heard children screaming and crying in the cemetery. The cemetery also has an old cellar, or a basement type structure, and some people think it was part of an old school building. Other people say it was Mr. Tucker's house that stood there, but now the cemetery is there. And there are stories of the cellar, that include murder that took place there, and buried bodies under the cellar. Another kind of creepy part of Tucker Cemetery that I've seen and heard was that people doing kind of voodoo, magic, Satanism, and then satanic cults use the property for ceremonies and practices and different rituals. But people always say that that the living and the dead are occupying this cemetery, and cemeteries are so crazy to me. And I just feel like they have so much energy, so much sometimes a lot of bad energy. One of the things that we used to go down to Bragg Cemetery, the old cemetery out kind of like you're headed out of town, and we were messing around out there, and I had I guess he was a guy that I was with. I don't know if I'd call him a buddy, but he was out there, and there was an old Jack Daniels bottle with about a half a bottle left. Sitting kind of at the edge of or not the edge, but kind of it was leaning against the headstone. He had grabbed it and poured it out. I know alcohol, is technically called spirits too. And, I told the story about a time when we felt like we were being stalked by something in the wood line. Well, he had done that right before that happened. And it was spooky. You're just messing with stuff out there. We're taking pictures and you see orbs, but cemeteries are very creepy. There's in Oklahoma, we have our fair share of unmarked cemeteries that are all over the place. My family, Miller Tiger, I guess he'd be my great great grandfather. He's buried out at basically an unmarked grave that's sunk down because it's just old. And there's houses that were built out there, and it's just real creepy out there. Oh, and I lied. I got more than 4 topics, so we got two more to go. The next one we're going to be talking about is Dead Woman's Crossing, and this is out in Deer Creek. No, I'm sorry, not in Deer Creek. It's off of a creek named Deer, but it's in Weatherford. And this is a really sad story. I got kind of goosebumps reading it because we hear stories like this. I know Cherokee Nation did a story when they used to talk to elders and up in Coffeyville. This is a similar story. You see a woman who had been, taken before her time, and you still see her. There I did it again. But the local legend of the Dead Woman's Crossing is that in 1905, a woman by the name of Katie James and her baby Lula Bell boarded a train to visit her family in Payne County. She had just filed for divorce on the grounds of cruelty treatment from her husband, and her father personally was like, "Hey, well, I'm going to put you on this train," and was expecting to hear from her after a few days. But as weeks passed, no word was heard from his daughter, and so he hired a private investigator, and he sent him out to find her. The detective then learned that Katie had befriended a prostitute by the name of Franny. Franny Norton was her name. And on they had befriended on the train, and she had taken her to this house, her brother-in-law's house, and I think it was in Clinton, I believe. They stayed there for a few hours and then took a trip in a buggy. Fanny returned alone and claimed to have no idea where Katie was. Dang, y'all, I'm getting spooked out. I don't know if y'all heard that. Dang, I'm getting creeped out. I'm in the middle of the day recording this, and the door behind me just opened and made that. I don't know if y'all heard that. Oh my gosh. Anyways, let me finish this story, and I'm gonna take a break after that. That was creepy. That was so creepy. But Fanny said that she didn't know where she was, and essentially, wiped her hands of it. So the private detective found the buggy that disappeared into the field near the creek, and it was spent about an hour before speeding back into town with blood all over the wheel. Fanny then stopped at a nearby farm, gave the baby wrapped in a bloody dress. Oh, this is what the detective found. He found he found out that Fanny had brought the buggy back, covered in blood, dropped the baby off in a bloody dress, and then but then the detective basically said that she was guys. That was creepy. I can't let that slide. That was so creepy. That door just goes, and I look and there's nobody there. Oh man, dang! I'm ruining this story, y'all. Dang, I'm trying to get back on. No, that was crazy. I hope y'all heard that. I'm hoping that when I listen back to this, that you guys heard that. So, anyways, the detective, questioned her. Private detective questioned her. She denied it, and the fact that basically they found out that Fanny had poisoned her, and basically indicated her guilt. But local legend states that Katie's spirit now roams around the Deer Creek in search of her daughter, and sometimes calling her name. Other witnesses, if you stand under the bridge, you can actually hear her screaming and yelling for her child. In the area around this creek, people have seen things ranging from UFO sightings to cattle mutilation to people in mysterious black robes performing rituals there at midnight. And then you can even hear the wagon wheels rattle above you. So that's creepy. Man, I set something off in the house when I started talking about that. But I'm sitting here, and literally the bathroom door behind me that's on down the hall, like through the kitchen, just was like, no, that's crazy. Oh, man, I got goosebumps. Yeah, man, that's one thing people always say, oh, yeah, I record in the nighttime. Hey, you crazy. You are crazy. I'm doing this in the middle of the day or actually in the morning, and nah. But anyways, as I gather my composure, the last topic we are going to talk about today. This one is kind of a polarizing place, I will say. And a lot of college students have went out here at this place over the years. And that is Spencer, Oklahoma, Midwest City, Oklahoma, Dale City in that area, but mainly Spencer, Oklahoma, and it's the Purple Church. I watched probably an hour documentary over this on YouTube. You just type in Purple Church. I think it was made by the professor at Rose State, I believe. But essentially, this property sits at the end of Douglas Avenue where it connects into Wilshire in Oklahoma City. Like, so it's like right off Oklahoma City. And, one thing about this place is it has a lot of reports. So many reports that I was like, man, this is all sounding the same. Like, there's got to be something to it because people are having the same stories. With some they're varied a little bit, but the Purple Church isn't really a church and it's not purple. I think the only thing on that property is maybe, I think it's like a slab of pavement where maybe a schoolhouse or something was there before, or maybe a church was there. But there's a low a basement and a cellar on the property. Now, this property is privately owned, and in the documentary, the owner of the property did not want to be revealed, and so they kind of went under like a black light or like a voice altering, and they essentially basically said that there's nothing wrong with the property. They've never experienced anything creepy, anything scary. They don't have satanic worshipers on there. And it's basically, they hired their neighbor, who is a lot of accounts are, they call him a gun wielding redneck, someone who is what do they call it? What's the Homelander type person. They got to have their guns on them at all time. That's a lot of how they described it. And so this person is gun wielding. They're aggressive. They sometimes people have said that they've seen booby traps or some type of like ropes hanging, different creepy stuff like that. And in the documentary, the owner of the property said, we did hire our neighbor to watch our property. We're trying to get it situated. Our money, is kind of run low. We couldn't afford to start building, and so we hired him. He's got a bunch of dogs, and the dogs patrol the property, but there's a part of this Purple Church, when people say it's just an urban legend, or it's just, it's just a bunch of kids out there wilding out, trying to have a good time. And one of the I guess you could say qualities, or one of the characteristics of this place is that people that go on the property, and there have been pictures circulating the internet for years of I'm talking many dead animals. The animals range from cats, dogs, even horses on this property that'll just be dead, laying there. You guys have heard my stories, especially the cult activity episode. That's what I encountered with my friend out in this area. And I don't know how to explain it. A lot of people say it's a satanic cult. There are satanic pentagrams all over the place in that property, on trees, on the cellar, on the pavement slab. And there's kind of like I said, hundreds of animals have been killed on that property. That's one thing that I find very interesting. Other people have went into the cellar and they could feel something behind them and something that's lording over them, like a heavy type of feeling, energy, and they can't stand it almost. It's like a pain almost, I guess you could say, or an agony, or some type of anxiety that falls over them and they run out. People have been, have went out there and have been chased on the property by robed figures. They have seen people out there dancing around a fire, for whatever reason. And then people go back to the gun wielding dogs everywhere. This guy who has six his dogs on people. People have felt hands on their shoulders, and they look and there's nobody there. There was a story that was kind of a funny one, but a guy went out there one night. Him and his buddies were trashed. They was hammered. They were gone to the wind. And they went out there and they said, let's go out here and mess around. And they went out there, and the guy, they saw someone basically chasing them in the woods, but they couldn't see him. It was almost like a shadow. Those guys were so scared that they decided, they were like, they would rather be in jail. They would rather get a public intox or a DUI than have to be captured by this shadow creature, shadow being. Which is kind of crazy, that someone be that scared that they don't even care if the cops are there. Cops pulled them over and basically said, hey, what's going on? Oh, we just, we're out here messing around, and they got scared. So there's a lot of different crazy things out there. People have seen orbs out there. One of the craziest things I think when it comes to the lore and the the creepiness of this place is you guys remember Sean Sellers, the 16-year-old Satanist who was convicted of killing his parents and a convenience store clerk, in Oklahoma City. It has been said that he used the property for his satanic rituals. For a background for people that don't know who Sean Sellers is, on September 8th, 1985, Sellers shot and killed Robert Bower, a convenience store clerk in Oklahoma City. One thing that's crazy about this kid is, according to Sellers' best friend, who was with him at the time of the murder, Sellers said that, man, I just want to kill somebody. I want to know how it feels to kill somebody, which is a crazy line. That is a crazy line to be saying that out loud. And then on March 5th, 1986, Sellers shot and killed his mother and his stepfather while they were sleeping in their beds in Oklahoma City. And during his trial, his defense argued that he was addicted to Dungeons and Dragons, and that started a whole kind of satanic panic in the 80s. Which, hey, that stuff is creepy. I ain't gonna lie. If you do that stuff, hey, leave me alone. I'm good. It's creepy. But basically, he was playing Dungeons and Dragons and got controlled by a demon, and he had no control over his actions and what he was doing. And he ended up, getting convicted. And at the time of his execution, he basically said that he was a victim of multiple personality disorder. But he was executed by lethal injection at 12/17 on February 5th, 1999. Now, there's a kind of a weird thing where it's like either he is like, this is what he said or this is what he said. So his stepsister said that his final words was, "Set my spirit free that I might praise thee. Set my spirit free that I might worship thee." I was looking up kind of a serial killer forum, and people in the crowd that were watching his execution said that he was talking to Satan and was like, "I'm coming home to you, Father." So I don't know. Anyway, I got goosebumps when I said that. That's crazy. I can't believe I said that. But yeah, crazy dude. But they say down at the Purple Church, that's where he started his rituals, was at that place. So, man, who knows what's going on over there at the Purple Church? Don't go there unless you have permission. I'd hate for someone to get lit up, by gunfire, or lit up by these shadow beings or shadow things that are grabbing people in the night. I'd hate for you to get bitten on the leg by a dog. I'd hate for you to walk in on a sacrifice, a cult ritual. I don't know, guys, but there's a lot of reports about it. Even I think the local paranormal team over there, I can't remember the guy's name in the documentary, but he went out there and he had experienced things like orbs and touching, like something touching and grabbing him, and he thought it was his team member, and he looked and there was nobody there. His team member was over here with the light. So it's real weird, guys. But this is Creepy Oklahoma Part 2. Man, I got spooked out bad. That was crazy. That really made me. I had to gather myself, man. I had to pull back the curtain. Maybe it was my cat opening the door. I don't know, but that was super creepy. But one thing was another thing that was kind of crazy. So I posted on YouTube a compilation of all my episodes, and I was talking about my cousin and his passing, and the entire episode sounds the same except for this like 5-second where it's like something was ruffling the mic. Super weird. So it's crazy, those things happen. But let me know what you guys think about the episode. About 45 minutes long. Warcry Pod on TikTok. One Man Band 918 on Twitter. Now, my Twitter account, guys, is WWE Wrestling, Oklahoma Football. My guilty pleasures. I love those things. I'll be tweeting my observations. So if you like that stuff, go over there. Eventually, I may talk about Oklahoma football when it gets closer to the season. But that's Twitter. Facebook, Eufaula Tiger. Make sure you add me. And when you add me, let me know that you listen to the podcast. And I want to, I don't approve everybody. If I don't really know you, then you sit in my friend request unless you message me and let me know that you're a listener. And also too, like I said before earlier, the Redbubble, the merch store. Get yourself a T-shirt. Get yourself a mug. Do your thing on there. 4th of July is coming up. I'm gonna start working on new designs. For different things. I'm thinking of a Bigfoot one. I'm also thinking about a UFO, an alien one, and even a conspiracy shirt too. So if you like any of those things, or let me know if you got any suggestions, what might be cool. But like I said, YouTube guys, make sure you like, share, subscribe, and I got a lot of things I'm trying to cook up. I got this episode. We got This Is Creepy series. I'm going to be working on a Nickelodeon conspiracy, and so I appreciate everyone. You guys continue to support the podcast. I'm back in the 918 officially, like for good. And I'm feeling a lot better than I was. It was like Oklahoma City sucked the life out of me, and I'm trying to work my way back and to get to where I want to be in my life. And so I appreciate everyone that continues to support me and the podcast. And I'll catch you guys on the next one.